Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Dancing with Damage. I'm Ian, your resident philosopher.
I'm Abby, your resident author.
And today, the Palace of Damage, which is to say how damage is formed within the brain. Hey, Abby?
Yes, and it's kind of exciting because so far we've touched on what damage is, that it's formed in a way that is not your fault, that it stops you from fulfilling your purpose in life, which is to sacrifice and show love to other people. But we haven't really touched on what causes damage, because while it's all good to say it's not your fault, where's our evidence? Where's our proof? Well, Ian and I have a fable just for that. And Ian, I would love it if you would share the wonderful fable with our friends on the internet.
Certainly we will. In other words, we've located the crack in the pipe under the sink that's dripping water, but the question is, how did that crack get there? And we've said, well, it was technology that tore the wings of love, proximity and codependence. We often shake our fingers like this. But how does that actually work? How can a twig actually rip the wings of a bat? And so the story goes, I'll take you far away from the forest with the bat onto a grassy hill, where a palace, or a castle, as you will, was commissioned to be built. And so for that purpose, 3 contractors were hired: an architect, a builder, and an interior designer. And the architect said to the other 2, well, you 2 can't do much until I draw my architectural plans, because the builder, you builder, can't build anything and put any stones on top of other stones until you see my plans. And you, interior designer, can't interior design until you see the rooms and how they're laid out. The feng shui, if you will. It's a very trendy castle. And the builder thought in their heart, well, what if I build without looking at your plans, architect, and I can build the castle very differently? And so the moral of the story is that even if things are supposed to be built and organized in a certain way, it is possible for an intermediary like the builder in the story to change the designs of the architect and change the overall result of a project.
Yes, and a fun note. So as you can imagine, an architect is trained to be good at making plans that are structurally sound. They have good engineering. So ideally, the builder would follow the architect's plans. So damage is like the builder going off the rails and not following the plans. So an undamaged person, their builder would totally follow the architect's plans. No veering off, no like, this is a room of tapestries, I'm crossing out the bathroom and making it a third kitchen. I don't know, whatever they want to do. But when you have damage, that's, as an example, the builder sort of going off book and saying, the architect may have said this, but I'm doing this now.
Third kitchen does sound nice, though, because then if you want a midnight snack, you're probably close to something, for example. So yeah, exactly. And to break that fable down a bit more, the castle in the story is a person's brain, and we like the brain, big fans of the brain. And that's because if you look at all of sort of human behavior and our reactions and our thoughts and our feelings and our everything that a human does, almost all of it you can trace back to the brain. Now, we recognize that there are some neurons and cells in other parts of the body that can influence behavior, but mainly it's the brain. It's the big cheese of being a person, we would say. And so in the brain, memories influence our behaviors, don't they?
Indeed. So if I may. So in this example, as you can tell, the architect is supposed to have some kind of power here. And in this example, the architect is akin to instinct, or sort of the centuries of humans in trial and error learning snakes bad. Some people now have fears of snakes. Eating good. Now we eat food, or at least we have an instinct to eat food. Fearing bad weather because historically it can kill people. These instincts, or the core of our genetics, are sort of what make us humans. They're sort of the script, the computer script for DNA and what is people.
What is people?
What is people?
And so Abby's right. So if you look at the architect and you can compare that type of memory to what, again, we call instinct, which an instinct is not formed within a person's lifetime. Indeed, it is formed over a natural selection, or even beyond the scope of humanity itself. A lot of our instinct can be attributed to when our brains were housed in, a monkey's skull, or even before that, or a lemur's skull, or whatever, however far back you want to go. We share so much of our DNA with other animals. Pigs and all these things are very closely linked to us. I think it's 90%, 96% similarity to pigs or something like that. So a lot of our behavior and our genetics is instinctive, and that is exactly like the architect. And we want to particularize again that memory is something that affects our behavior, but is not something that was crafted. The memory was not lived in a person's lifetime, and we're not able, therefore, to recall the experiences that forged that particular genetic sequence.
Well said.
Thank you. I really thought that was going well. With the pigs and everything. I do still like pigs.
They're cute.
Such cute little bristly creatures. And then we have the builder. Now, if instinctive memory, well, maybe we'll do like a bookend. So if instinctive memory is something that wasn't lived and isn't recallable by the user, what would be like the interior designer, Abby?
That would be like the conscious memory. So active thinking, what's going on in your brain right now, the words you're thinking, the music playing in your head, your conscious active memory, super recallable. That would be like the interior designer, because when you go into a house, you don't necessarily know or remember how it was built. You know it was built, you know it exists, but what is inside, the lived experience within the castle, your interactions with the things the interior designer puts in the castle, is you creating memories within your life.
And the conscious memory, if the instinct was not lived and not recallable, but still greatly influences our behavior, the conscious memory can influence our behavior, but it is the opposite. It was both lived. So the example was yesterday, Abby pet a cat.
Our cat, specifically.
She pet
Darwin
the cat. And she can clarify because let's say she remembers that experience and she can recall it. So she lived it and she can access it. And that forms a conscious memory. So, Abby, what would you say your earliest recallable lived conscious memory was? Like what age? What's your first recallable memory?
I think I was 5.
Okay. And what was this?
It wasn't a good memory. So it was someone very close to me passing away. But that's the earliest memory I have. I know how old I was at the time, and I was 5. So, yeah.
And I think most people, if you ask yourself, and put in the comments below, or you can just think internally, what's sort of your first memory? And what Abby's experiences is generally the consensus. 5, 6, 7. Some people say 4, 3. It's hard to say for sure. But things are pretty blurry at first. Our first memories are pretty blurry, and then they become more crystallized as we get a bit older. A lot of us have pretty clear memories of significant events that happened when we were 12, 13, 14. And then, of course, as we get into our 20s and 30s, we're able to, if we need to, or if something particular happened, we can dredge up a certain memory. So that leaves us with a bit of a void. Instinctive memory happened before we were born, before age 0. And conscious memory seems to be living in the garden of anything after 5, let's say, for most people. So from 0 to 5, what do we have? We have experiences that are happening to a person, but we can't recall them. So do you think, Abby, that those experiences are just lost into the ether and sort of drift like dandelion seeds in the wind?
No, let's say that when you're born, the castle is being built. So the moment you're born, the builder gets those plans and starts making the castle. And then by the time the builder is finished making the castle and the interior designer comes in and starts putting in the tapestries and the sofas and the statues of dogs or whatever you have in your castle. Yeah. So let's say the interior designer putting in stuff is sort of 5, 6, your first active conscious memory. So the builder's job in the brain or in your mind, the building of the castle or the building of the brain or the creation of many of those first pathways would be, I'd say, subconscious memory. So Ian, can you tell us a little bit more about how subconscious memory works?
There we go. That 0 to 5 kind of span. Indeed, there are experiences happening to a person, very formative experiences. The scientific community has sort of accepted that those are still written down and recorded in the mind as memory. So they're lived experiences by a person, but they're not recallable. So we've got the architect, not lived experience is not recallable. We've got the builder, subconscious memory, lived experiences, not recallable. And then we've got the interior designer, lived experience is recallable. Now, the reason the fable is nice is because the purpose of a castle is usually to, keep the people inside safe.
I would agree. Yes.
And so, does the interior designer have a lot of importance if the castle is under attack by a horde, a vicious horde?
We have really weird imaginations.
A horde.
We may play a lot of D&D. Can you tell?
A horde of horrible foes.
I would say, to answer your question, that I think an interior designer who makes the furniture or who procures the furniture may have a lot to do with comfort and maybe some resolve. Maybe in your conscious memory you've dealt with some trying times and you've gained some resolve so you can weather the storm a little bit better. You have a slightly fluffier couch to sit on, so it's not as painful while you wait for the horde to disperse. But I would say that predominantly the structure of the castle and the way it has been built is like 99% of how that works.
Mm-hmm. The interior designer of a castle is not going to help when the slings and arrows of the horde outside start raining on the castle. More important in that scenario is if the walls are solid and the drawbridge is up and the moat is deeply dug and those sort of things.
Full of dragons.
And so we say, and there's quite a bit of support for this in the scientific community, is that our behavior has so much to do with instinct and that subconscious period of growth. And everything after that, even though as humans we tend to focus on someone's accomplishments and education and experiences when conscious memory is being laid down, truly those experiences don't actually form us, in our argument, as much as that important 0 to 5 period. All humans have basically the same architect, basically the same blueprints. But what can vary from person to person quite greatly is that builder who has so much sway over how the ultimate castle turns out. And we see that in people. We see that when some people are able to withstand and resist certain problems that life throws at them, just like the horde that might come. And some people, the walls just crumble and the roof caves in and they're defenseless. Mm. And so, again, in our theory, we have damage that's responsible for that castle that's not serving its purpose and protecting the brain of that individual, protecting the essence of that person. And so that's how we get to how damage is formed, because Abby and I were thinking the purpose of life is to show love for ourselves and for people around us and ultimately for the next generation. That's how evolution designed us. So if evolution, the instinct, the architect, laid these plans, how is it that so many plans have gone awry when we look around society and individuals in society? Hey, Abby.
Yeah, that's true. So what is it that causes people to go off script or deviate from the purpose of life? Because as we established, the purpose of life is fundamental. It's common between all of us because it is a important core thing. Mm-hmm. So it has to be somewhere in the code of instinct or the code of the architect, because if it was just formed within our own lives and not common for all people, it could not be core. So what is causing us to step away from our instinct?
So let's look at the memories one by one. Do we think it's the architect that has deviated from the plan for humans to show the most love for the next generation? Well, probably not, because instinct takes a long time to change. And we really notice when we look at the weave of love and how the soul of humanity is sort of failing, it's really only kind of a recent thing. There hasn't really been enough time for instinct to change. Instinct takes many, many generations and millennia to meaningfully change, doesn't it? So it's probably not the architect that has done anything differently. What about the conscious memory, Abby?
No, the interior designer, as we've established, while conscious memories help to form our personality and our likes and our dislikes, they don't really have much impact on our ability to withstand contention in our life and to show and receive love. those have sort of gotten to your threshold, or your threshold has been created by the time the interior designer comes into the picture. So, in our opinion, that sort of just leaves the builder that period from approximately 0 to 5 years old, where your subconscious memory is forming and establishing and collecting all of your lived experience in a place that you can't access, but deeply impact who you are as a person.
That's right. The interior designer, their conscious memory, simply doesn't have enough power to derail instinct. And the way you can think of that is no one can will themselves let's say you're claustrophobic, or
I am so close.
most people don't like being in enclosed spaces. Like most people would be terrified of the idea of being buried alive.
Oh, don't even talk about it.
Well, let's say
You can talk about it, but I don't like
let's say you woke up one day and you were in a coffin buried alive underground. You would start to panic and feel fear. And even if your conscious memory said it's not helpful to panic, let's not panic, it would be powerless to talk yourself out of that raw fear, because the instinct to not be in an enclosed space is it's just so much more powerful. Just like the architect has so much more sway over the castle and how it works than the interior designer.
I have an example that might be a little less traumatic, but more maybe relatable day to day. So instinctively, as humans, resources that are important to us, we need to keep safe. And if we lose a vital resource, that could mean the end of our existence, which is very bad. So somewhere coded in our instinct is to not lose important things. Fair?
Of course.
So everyone has a moment where they can't find their phone, they can't find their wallet, they can't find their keys. One or all of these three things goes missing. Everyone experiences that. And you have a surge of panic that runs through you. Even if you haven't left your own home since you last had the object, you still feel that sort of fluttery, horrified, almost like a surge of, what is it a surge of? A surge of what I'm looking for.
Some people have anxiety about it.
Yeah.
Nervous feeling.
I'm trying to think of the chemical reaction in the body.
Oh, it's probably adrenaline.
Adrenaline, thank you. A surge of adrenaline to try to find this thing. And even if, as an example, I have lost my phone before in my own house, Ian has helped me find it.
Do you know where your phone is now?
Yes, it is recording this video. It's safe.
I think we should go look for it.
But even though I've lost it in the house and Ian is helping me find it, and everything is fine and I am safe and I don't have any important calls, because my phone is so important to me and my business, I still feel that panic. And even if Ian says it's going to be okay, you don't need to panic, until I find it, I can't release those feelings of anxiety. So I think maybe that's sort of on a micro scale.
It's a great example for why we shouldn't turn to the conscious memory or the interior designer for the cause of how humans have lost the thread of their purpose of life. It's simply attributing too much weight to that particular contractor. So that leaves us by process of elimination with the builder. And that makes a lot of sense, because here we have an entity where the brain is being formed most significantly, the 0 to 5 period, that really has the ability to overpower instinct and change it so that the love humans have the directive through instinct to show is being quelled, is able to quell love that humans are supposed to show. Remembering that love, of course, is the opposite of damage. So if you have a lack of love, you have an increase of damage, selfish behavior. And so I guess where we'll leave off this episode, because there's a lot more to talk about here. But importantly, what we want to leave you with is that in our theory, we have to accept that memory drives behavior. There seems to be 3 types of memory, just like the 3 types of contractors we discussed in the fable. And that it's the 0 to sort of 5, we'll call it 0 to 5 or 0 to 6, 0 to 4. That subconscious memory is where love is draining out of the system. So love is not only a contract or a behavior between people that we want and we want to improve. It's not alone in terms of the emotions that humans have evolved to live in packs. And we're going to bring this up next time, but what we want to leave you with as a teaser for the next episode is that there are, in fact, in the theory, 6 true emotions that live in the subconscious, one of them being love, and the others being guilt, grief, rage, hate, and joy. And then, of course, love. So basically what we want to leave you with today is that the builder builds the walls, and part of the walls and part of the roofs and part of the moat and part of the battlements and part of the turrets, they're sort of formed of these 6 emotions that are so critical to living in a socially acceptable way. And all 6 of them are guilt, grief, love, hate, rage, joy. So we're going to talk about those maybe next episode, Abby?
Yes.
But any thoughts about something we've left out? Or
Well, I guess just to re-summarize. So we're going to call it the formative years, I think, going forward, just to make it easier. But for your mind, approximately 0 to 5, 0 to 6, the portion of your life where your brain is forming rapidly, you can't actively remember your memories, but they definitely impact you. We're going to call those the formative, the part of your life where you're most directly impacted by the people around you and how your life is going. And another teaser for the 6 true emotions. So there's a lot of things people say are emotions and how we're feeling. We are going to separate those to subconscious and conscious emotions. Conscious emotions are emotions you can regulate with some thinking, and subconscious emotions are emotions that no matter what positive thinking or negative thinking you throw out there, you can't quell the emotion. It is all consuming. So I think we'll leave you with that as your teaser for the next episode.
There you go. So we're really getting into it now. So stay tuned for the next episode of Dancing with Damage.
Hope you have a great day.